Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in and spending a few moments of your day with me. Today I've got another magic review for you. We're taking a look at Crazy Sam's Handcuffs by Sam Huang. Now this is a rubber band magic effect that was brought to my attention by a good friend of mine. And I have to admit to you guys that when I initially saw the trailer, I almost immediately figured out the method from watching the trailer just twice. And at first I wasn't really impressed with this. I was like, oh, that's not gonna fool anyone. I thought it was just like a cheap visual illusion. It wasn't until I went back and read the ad copy and saw all of the extra things that were included in the variations that I decided to pick this up. I'm a really big fan of rubber band magic because it's super portable and very visual. And for that reason, I thought, well, I might be able to add this to my existing routine repertoire that I do. And so for $25, you guys can pick this up. You're gonna get some rubber bands as well as a 40-minute instructional video where you're gonna learn 2 routines, the basic handling, some applications and variations of the core principle and effect. That's what you can expect. As usual, I'm gonna try to give you guys a good rundown of what this is, give you guys my impressions, experiences. I'm also going to give you some other recommendations of other rubber band material that is similar that you may want to take a look at. So this effect is based on the Crazy Man's Handcuffs that originated as Arthur Sethington's effect called Getaway, and that was published in the New Pentagram magazine back in 1970. You're probably familiar with it. It was Daryl that penned the name or coined the name Crazy Man's Handcuffs, and it was Michael Amar who really made the effect popular, and you've probably learned it from a Michael Amar video. But if you're not familiar with the Crazy Man's Handcuffs, you're showing the spectator that you have 2 rubber bands that are linked together, and you explain to them that there's no way for them to come apart unless you rub just right and then they come apart. That's the basic effect. It's extremely simple. Although for some reason, some people have said that it's difficult or complicated. I don't know. I don't think it really is. But this variation of it, Crazy Sam's Handcuffs, it starts out with a link before you do the unlink. So you're going to be showing the spectator that you've got 2 rubber bands, and you explain to them that the rubber bands are going to link together. You show them that they've linked, and then in continuation, they unlink. And that's the basic effect. That's the basic handling of the effect, and then all throughout here you're going to learn some other variations of it. So let's start out with my impressions of this. As I mentioned, at first I was skeptical, and I was really happy to see the different variations that you learn, especially Hansen Chen's variation, which I think is the best variation on here. I really enjoyed performing that, especially because you show the spectator that the rubber bands are linked, and so there's no question about that. And I got really good reactions. I was surprised at how fooling this is to lay people. Of course, I wouldn't recommend repeating it too much because I think that somebody would figure it out if you repeated it for them a lot. But if you're into rubber band magic, I think you're really gonna like it a lot. I really liked how this is modular and how you can perform this and go right into the Crazy Man's Handcuffs if you want to. Although there is a very small discrepancy at the end, but it won't even matter anyway. And as I mentioned, you can just add this to your existing rubber band routine that you do. For years, what I would perform would be Nabil Murday's effect called Link, which it's a visual link before you do the unlink. And I think that that's really the biggest thing that you can compare this to, because it's essentially the same thing. You're linking and unlinking rubber bands visually. And so I think that this is something that you might be interested in if you do perform that version. And I'm going to actually show you guys a demo of that before the end of this review. But that's really my impression of this. I was really surprised and really pleased with all the extras, especially the extra applications that you get on here. So let's go over what's included in the video, and we'll go over some questions. So it starts out with the basic handling, which you're going to learn. And then afterwards, you're going to learn 2 routines. The first routine is 2 phases. It's a very quick link and unlink, and then a slow motion link and unlink, very visual. The second routine is a link and then an explanation. You try to explain to your spectator how it was done, and basically afterwards you have them hold one rubber band in their hands and you take the other one and do the crazy man's handcuffs while they're holding one rubber band, which is very standard. You've probably learned that on another rubber band instructional video that you've watched somewhere. Afterwards, you learn an advanced handling from Joe Rindfleisch, which I would say is probably the most complicated, the most difficult handling on the video. And I don't think it's bad, but I think the Hansen Chen version is even better. So I think that you probably just would want to pay attention to that. Afterwards, they get into some different applications of the core method. And I thought those were really interesting, where one of the applications was you have the rubber band penetrate a ring that you make with your finger and your thumb. So you have the rubber band penetrate both ways, and then they show you how you can do the same basic idea using 2 markers or 2 pens, and they also show you how you can use just 2 bracelets to do it. Following that, they have Dr. Cyril Thomas show you a very visual link of a rubber band and the handle of a pair of scissors, and it's very fast but crazy visual, and something that you might want to show somebody to mess with them up close. After that variation, Nicholas Lawrence goes over his variation using 2 rolled up playing cards, which is very reminiscent of like the 2 cigarette link and unlink or penetration type effect. And finally, at the very end, you learn Hansen Chen's variation, which is the same thing as the basic handling, but there is a moment where you're proving that the rubber bands are really linked together. And that was my favorite handling on the video, and that's the version that I used out in the real world and got really good reactions from. I think it'd probably be your favorite version too. Let's go over a couple of questions you probably have. So first question, is there any gimmicks or gaffes? There's no gimmicks or gaffes at play here. The rubber bands are just normal rubber bands. You probably already have them at home. You probably already have the rubber bands that you like to use for rubber band magic. The next question you probably have is, how difficult is this to perform? I would say that it's advanced intermediate level. The actual move is very simple to learn, but the reason why I would say that this is like advanced intermediate is because what's difficult is to learn how to do it smoothly, and that's going to take some practice. Because there is some slight angle issues here as well, that's another reason why I would say that it's more like advanced intermediate level, because you do have to kind of be careful with your hand position. That said, I didn't have any issues with the angles at all, but I did practice quite a bit before I decided to try and use it. But for that reason, I would say that, I mean, it does require some sleight of hand, so it's not like self-working magic. If you are into rubber band magic, though, I think that you won't find it too difficult. In terms of, can you repeat the effect? You can repeat it, but like I said, I wouldn't repeat it more than twice because I'd be worried that they'd figure it out. The next question you probably have, like I mentioned before, is how are the angles? The angles are okay, but like I said before, you have to be careful with your hand position, and you have to be careful that you don't expose something. So there is some angle restrictions that you have to be careful with, but if you practice in front of a mirror or videotape yourself and watch that, I think that you can really iron that out pretty easily. You may be wondering, like me, I was wondering, how fooling is this effect really? And the truth of the matter is it's extremely fooling. Everyone I showed it to were just completely fooled. They have no idea how it was done. And I think it's because their eye focuses on the point of where the penetration is taking place. So because of that, it just flies right over their head. So it is extremely fooling, even though I was very skeptical too at first. Finally, the last question is probably who would like this, and I think anyone into close-up magic, rubber band magic, or visual magic, I think that you're really gonna like it a lot. Anyway, I think those are the questions you probably have about this. Let's get into the rating, and then afterwards I'm going to give you guys some other recommendations of my own of other products you may want to take a look at. So here's the rating for this effect, and you can see that I have rated this highly favorable. I thought this was extremely creative, very versatile, very practical, extremely visual. You can see I rated the price as 3 out of 5 because I think that the price is just fair. I think it's a good price. I don't think it's an excellent price, but I don't think it's a bad price either for what you get. And you can see that Our final rating is 4.33 out of 5. Highly favorable. Again, I would highly recommend this product to anyone who is into rubber band magic. Now let's take a look at a couple of other recommendations I have for you guys. We are going to start out with Danny Garcia's Slink. Let's take a quick look at this crazy visual penetration effect. Here's Danny Garcia's Slink, and you're going to show the two bands like this, and you're going to penetrate one right through the other. And then you can have the spectator blow, or you could blow, and you can show how they instantly unlink. All right, so you guys took a look at Danny Garcia's Slink, and this was put out like back in 2008. I think it was put out by Theory 11. It was the Bent Slink Touch project back in the day. I can't even remember how much it was back then, and I don't know if it's even available anymore, but it is still a penetration, a link and unlink effect that I still perform to this day, which is why I recommend it to you guys. And you can see how visual it is. It's something you may want to try to hunt down and see if you can get a used copy somewhere. My next recommendation I'm going to make to you guys is, of course, Nabil Murday's Linked, which for years has been my favorite way of performing the Crazy Man's Handcuffs, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Let's take a look at it. So here's Nabil Murday's Linked, and this is a personal favorite of mine. I've used this for years just because it's such a visual penetration. You're showing the spectator that you've got two bands, and you say, look, if we just rub them together, you notice that it will look like they're starting to go together. See, if I just rub like that, and this is a really nice visual element. They could see that they've really penetrated, and then you can say, look, it goes right out. Really undetectable, super easy to perform, and just destroys people. I've actually never been called out on this, so I think you're really gonna like that a lot. Okay, so you guys took a look at Nabil Murday's Linked, and again, this is another effect that I picked up back in like 2008, 2007, way back in the day. And again, I don't think you can even find this anymore, but if you can hunt down a used copy, then it may be worth picking up because you could just see how visual it is. It's like stunning. It stuns your spectator completely. And then finally, my last recommendation that I'm going to make to you guys is like a personal favorite of mine that I use all the time, and it's like another link and unlink effect, and it's by Marcus Eddy. It's called Raw Linkage, and I've probably showed it to you if you've done any kind of sessioning with me, and it looks a lot like this, where you're going to basically just visually penetrate one band through the other one and then show them that you just pulled it out again. It's just the link and unlink of one band. Anyway, there's a couple of recommendations for you guys of other stuff you may want to hunt down. In terms of any real negatives of this project, I would have to tell you guys that the only real negative I think is that you have to be really careful with your angles, and then it's not something that you can repeat too much because I think that they might figure it out. But other than that, I think that it's an excellent visual illusion, and it fools everyone, at least everyone that I've performed it for. I haven't had anyone notice anything. So I think that that's really anything, if you could say that there's even a real negative here, and maybe that you have to put in a little bit of practice to learn it. But I mean, if that's a negative for you, you shouldn't be doing magic then anyway. So as usual, if you guys have any questions or comments, just leave them for me below. And thanks so much, guys, for tuning in to my magic reviews. I'll see you on the next one.